Hi everyone, welcome to our Casual Watch Talk Christmas special. Should be a fun one for us here today, but I'm joined by my panel here, Nicholas from Fears, got Pete
Hi there.
McConville from Pete McConville's YouTube channel, and Seiko Todd. Hello. Well,
Hello, Governor.
who is playing the part of Scrooge tonight, I should say. The part of Scrooge will be played by Seiko Todd. I'm not being Tiny Tim. We're not going to go that far. Well, Todd, Scrooge, what watch have you got for us today? What are you wearing?
Oh, I have something that was put together in the work factories by the children. I've got my
beautiful.
I got a restored Seiko a ball head from 1976, and so
lovely. Really brown, and then it's that bit like a burgundy.
Yeah, these are fun. It has its original brushing on it still, pretty good.
Ooh.
And you can see how thick this is on top. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, wearing a Seiko this time to be Seiko Todd.
Very good, very good. Let me remove you from there. Pete, what are you wearing?
This is a watch which may get another mention later today. The Breitling Super Ocean in bronze.
Very nice.
Very nice. We had quite the conversation about that on the last live stream. If you missed it, Pete and I did a solo, a double act on the Tuesday live stream. It was really good. We were trying to remember all the watch dramas that happened this year, and I had that as one of my watch dramas. Anyway, Nicholas, what are you wearing?
Probably not a huge surprise. I'm wearing my Christopher Ward Bel Canto. So yeah, I haven't worn it for a week or so because I've been doing a lot of business traveling and needing to wear watches from my company. But I put this back on a couple of days ago, and it's good to have on my wrist. However, I think I mentioned before we started, my husband's just flying in from Singapore for Christmas, and he still doesn't know I bought this. So basically, at the end of this live stream, this is going in the watch box, and that will be it for Christmas until I head back to Bristol in January. So I'm enjoying it for the final hour.
Yeah, I like what you were talking about on the Scottish Watches when you co-hosted on Scottish Watches. You were saying that it's a good reminder that time is passing when you hear the chime. That normally, instead of just time being one linear thing in the day, you actually remind you that there's another hour that's passed.
It's really good for that. It's really good to remind you, like, especially if you're sort of wasting an evening away, just scrolling through Instagram, something you watch dings and you're saying like, oh, actually I ought to go to bed rather than spending 3 more hours, and then it's 1 a.m. But the fun thing was a couple of weeks ago, I was over in Maidenhead at the CW head office because we were doing some filming about the collaboration watch, which comes out in January. And Mike was wearing his watch, which is actually 1 serial number different from mine. And throughout the filming, it just kept randomly tinging because, of course, as you're filming, you don't look at the time, and so we'd have to keep stopping and then restart because you'd be like, why is there this random ting? The film crew were not impressed by that, but yeah, no, it's on my wrist, and we'll be staying here proudly for the next hour or so.
Awesome. Yeah, that's an exciting one, isn't it? Next year for the collaboration with Christopher Ward.
Yeah, 20th of January to all get.
Oh, is this breaking? Is this a news? This is breaking news.
We have a date. So 20th of January it's announced, and then 27th of January it goes on sale to give people 7 days because it's going to be available to purchase if you're a member of the Alliance of British Watch and Clockmakers. If you're a club member. So it gives people 7 days to sign up, become a member, and then they'll get the password to be able to access the page and hopefully decide they want to place an order.
Oh, that's a shame. So it's not going to be available to the general public. Well, unless it does as well.
Well, yeah. So it's the club members are, basically they're not. You have the trade members, which are the brands, and then the club members are members of the public who have joined the alliance. So it's an annual subscription, £55 a year. You get a couple of magazine subscriptions thrown into it. This year, people got given a copy of the Watch Annual, Justin Hast's book. So there's a few perks and benefits along with some exclusive content and the ability to also access the page to purchase the watch. So if you 20th January, hopefully everyone will see it, and it'd be interesting to hear the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark's actually put that he's completed his Bel Canto review. Mark, I didn't know you had a YouTube channel, or is that a written review? If you've got a channel, put the link in the description or in the chat. I'm wearing the Seiko Speed Timer. I just did a review on the channel. Really happy with this one. I actually put it on. Uncle Seiko made a clasp for it that has an extra three adjustment holes, whereas the other one has two. And the extra adjustment hole made all the difference. So I'm wearing it on the bracelet, which I never wore the other one on the bracelet. So anyway. Okay, so today's theme, Christmas theme, is we're going to do a Christmas Carol. We're going to do a Scrooge theme. So we've each picked a Ghost of Christmas Past, so a watch that was released this year that we didn't like, and then a Ghost of Christmas Present, which will be one that we really liked from this year and perhaps wanted to buy, although I think Pete's actually bought his one, but the rest of us will be like one that we wish we'd bought. And then the Ghost of Christmas Future is going to be a watch that we hope gets released next year. So maybe one that's not been announced, a future watch. So who wants to kick us off here? Todd, do you want to kick us off with your Ghost of Christmas Past?
My Ghost of Christmas Past. Yes. Yes. So I sent you. So okay, Nicholas, was that really horrible accent? Was that bad?
Yes, it was.
It wasn't quite Dick Van Dyke. So you were definitely on the level. Dick Van Dyke's like a -1. You were like
certainly better than my American
from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
From Mary Poppins.
Oh, Mary Poppins, of course, it's Mary Poppins.
He offended
and then I start to sound like something out of Hogsworth too. Of course, I'm got the hair for it. But anyhow, I would say I put up a G-Shock.
Okay, yeah.
So my issue, I don't know if this one was released this year necessarily. It's out of stock. But what I think are bad Ghosts of Christmas Past are any G-Shocks that are too crazy or outlandish and overpriced than the standard black ones. I just don't get it. If I was, gifted one of these, like the zebra, it's not a zebra stripe. It's kind of like zebra stripes, but they're green. I guess they're grass. I don't know what this is. I don't know what I'd do with it. I wouldn't wear it, but that's kind of my thing. I'm just picking on G-Shocks in general. This is that are, again, kind of blah. And this is one of them. Yeah, I just don't get it. I just don't want to spend $500 for G-Shock. I just don't get
it. I suppose you had an interesting point there as well about buying people watches for presents, because I've expressly told my parents that thank them very much for the thoughts, but please don't buy me any watches for.
Right. Don't buy me
my mother bought me one actually that Michael, who helped us out on the Facebook group, he actually owns it now, but my mum bought me one with Winston Churchill on the dial face with their gold hands. I was very, very, very thankful that she thought of me, but it wasn't one that I would have regularly worn, I don't think. But it did have one of his quotes around the Reholt in all its quartz glory.
Cheap dollar Chinese quartz movement glory.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So yes. Well, Pete, have you got a ghost of Christmas Past, a watch that you didn't like this year?
Yes. I didn't like the Tudor Black Bay Pro G&T. I want a Tudor. I want to like the idea of owning a Tudor. And through 2021, there were some glimpses that maybe Tudor was going to grow up and become a brand of its own. But with this watch, in fact, all the releases that Tudor did at Watches and Wonders this year, it just smacked that idea, that dream that there was an independent Tudor out of the park. And this watch was my watch that this was the worst watch of the year for me, because it was a watch that said, not only do I not like this watch, but there's a whole brand that's probably not for you anymore. Their entire direction, everything they do, their reason for being probably doesn't align with you. And so this is the watch. This is like that one last, thing your girlfriend does that make you break up with them. The Black Bay GMT Pro, worst watch of the year.
Wow, this is a shocker.
Wow.
Because this was a standout watch at release, wasn't it? I mean, I just watched O'Shean's top 10 or top 5 watches of the year, and this watch was on there. He said that this was a triumph of a watch that was released, and yeah, I'm shocked that you. Is it because it looks too much like the original Rolex Explorer 2, or what is it that you? This is like a therapy session. What is it that it's?
It's yeah, exactly right. It's at this moment, and I'm not alone in seeing this. It was around about this moment that you started getting YouTubers across the board saying, and I think people on this channel have said it, Rolex doesn't need to experiment. That's what they use Tudor for. Rolex will never release heritage brands, heritage editions of their watches. That's what Tudor's for. And this is the watch that kind of really cemented that and said, this is Tudor is Prince Andrew. Every royal family needs the heir and a spare, and Tudor is only ever going to be the spare.
I disagree with this, but it because it's the holiday season. But anybody else have any thoughts on it?
I suppose I mean, the one thing I can see where you're getting at, Pete, is like, as someone who was involved in when Tudor relaunched into the UK market, I remember like at the press briefings being told, right, whenever you talk to anyone, do not reference it in relation to Rolex. We want it to stand on its own 2 feet, and it's its own thing, and all of this. And we went through hours of this and all the words and language we could use. And I think the thing I've found so bizarre in the last couple of years is just how Tudor spent so much energy and effort trying to move away from its old image, which was the poor man's Rolex, right? The case, oyster case made by Rolex on the case back, the crown on the crown, all of those details. They moved away. They were like, no, we can spread our wings, we can do our own thing, and become, as you say, they're the one who they can experiment things with. You had things like the Black Bay P01, like that sort of stuff, like the real kind of out there. And now it's like, here is the Rolex, here is the Tudor version, here is the Rolex, yes. Here is the Tudor version, here is the Rolex, here is the Tudor. And it seems as though there's more and more where actually, if you go through the catalog, and the thing is, it's not just the Black Bay, they have a range called like the classic or the glamour or the style, I think it is, which has like fluted bezels and dates. And you're basically like, here is the Datejust, here is the Tudor version with two-tone. And you're just like, really? Like, you spent, if you'd never tried to move away from that, then I'd be like, who cares? Great. You can't get the Rolex, so why not buy the Tudor? But the fact is, they worked so hard in all the marketing and all the designs and all the branding and the relaunch of the Tudor brand in the 2010s. It seems so weird that they've kind of just gone, no, actually, we're just going back to it being that. And I wonder if that's just because of what's happened with Rolex and it becoming unobtainium. They've gone, oh, right, well, actually, this is clearly the sort of stuff people want, so we'll just do that. I don't know, but yeah. I think as a watch, I actually like the watch. I think it's well balanced, it's well proportioned, and to look at the is it this Steve McQueen Explorer 2? The look, the style, fab. It's great. What I don't like about it, and what annoyed me when it came out, and this isn't my watch, but what really angered me was the fact that it was just like, oh great, they really aren't committing all in. Like, they've got the root beer GMT this year, they've got this, you've got all the pieces that no one talks about but people buy as well, and you're just like, yeah, I don't know.
Pete, sorry, how can they redeem themselves in your eyes, Tudor?
Every now and then they tease me. They throw some chum in the water. The P01, the METAS certified ceramic, the original Pelagos, and so the latest one's an abomination, but the original one, and the North Flag, the obvious one, And my gut feel, and it's only a gut feel, and I'd love to talk to someone who was like on the bridge, in the command center, when they were deciding what shooter was going to be. I almost get the feeling that they tried to run a 2-track strategy. They ran their Black Bays, which were very Rolex homage, and they ran the Pelagos North Flag that were very new and contemporary, and a little bit King Seiko, Grand Seiko. I wonder if there wasn't kind of a race off, which one will be the future of us? And we all decided that what we needed was more homages to the original 50s, 60s Rolex, and we made Tudor what it is today. So that's kind of, I wonder if that's what happened, because it just seems to be in that relaunch, there were 2 possible futures. And, you know, the idea of an interesting, contemporary, forward-looking thing that they could do was kind of died. And so how could they redeem themselves? I've always hoped that they would take the Pelagos line and create a complete alternative, something very different to the Black Bay. Let the Black Bay be the homage brand. It can be the one that looks back at other people. It's the one that can borrow from Rolex tunes and things like that. And, you know, Pelagos can go off and be its own thing. And then with the Pelagos 39, they went and put another dagger in my heart and said, you know what, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to drag the Pelagos back towards the Black Bay. So it's just like, yeah, the Black Bay Pro GMT was the one that said, you know, in the words of Taylor Swift, poet of a generation, we are never, ever, ever getting back together.
Oh dear. Todd, have you got any thoughts on this?
How can you follow that? That was brilliant. But I'm in complete agreement with Pete. I love all of Tudor's watches. I mean, a lot of them, not all of them, most of them that have come out, but I have no interest in buying any of them. None of them, if they're fighting for my hard-earned money, am much more readily interested in an Omega, which is kind of my brand in that regard, at that level anyway. Not really. There's not. I see Tudors like, oh, that's a pretty watch, and that's it. It's just nothing there excites me.
Well, okay. Well, Nicholas, what is your Ghost of Christmas Past? The one watch that you didn't care for this, or there was a shocker maybe.
So, I mean, it's when we come on to the Christmas present, I'll kind of go into this more. I mean, I think this year there wasn't a lot that was super exciting. So it was kind of being like okay, I'll just go through my WhatsApp messages between friends and go like, let's pick one of these. But actually there was a watch that came out in the last week that really, really has got me. And it has made me so angry, but on so many levels. And that's I don't even know what the full name of it. I'm going to call it the Moser Metaverse watch. The one with the QR code over the dial, and then now it is quite cool. They 3D printed a titanium bezel and crown to look 8-bit, and it's all like, you know, that's kind of cool tech to actually like 3D print a bezel, because bezels have to be quite precise. But when you see the watch, it's not even the way it looks that angers me. It's everything else about this watch and about what it symbolizes in the watch industry today. And yeah, I'll see if you can't see it, I'll try and find a link.
Yeah,
to it,
I think this might be it loading now. Is it called?
Yes, the Genesis. The Genesis. Here we
I
go.
wonder if it's got actually. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Wowzers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the Genesis watch. So, what is this watch? Okay, so it's, I believe, titanium. No, the case might not be titanium, but basically, the watch has got a QR code over the crystal. And the idea is that you hold your phone up to it, scan the QR code, and then it unlocks all of this information. Lots of it stored in, obviously, blockchain. I think there's an accompanying NFT. It would shock me if there wasn't. And you have access to an exclusive metaverse, which a lot of people have slammed for being pretty lame, which, you know, no offense to Meta, seems to be the one thing that a lot of people seem to be saying about the metaverse. But anyway, no, let's just look at this for what it is. So this watch is a Moser. Okay, so Moser are used to bring out things like, you know, the Swiss cheese watch, the icon watch, you know, the for want of a better phrase, the piss take watches, right? This hasn't been created for that reason. This isn't a Moser piss take watch. This is Moser doing like this ridiculous. Okay. I'm going to go right back to why this angers me. It angers me because I feel that the Swiss watch industry in particular is really, really hot on jumping on bandwagons, whether it's the environment. They will suddenly, for years and years and years, don't care about the environment. And then all at once, everyone is trying to do anything they can to be sustainable and trumpet that, having only a few years before dismissed it completely. With this is a case of a watch being developed clearly, 18 months ago, when crypto was at its height, NFTs were on the way up to their height. Yeah. Meta was this, you know, wonderful promise before they let go of thousands of people. And, you know, so they were going, right, we've got to develop something. We've got to be the first to create something in this area. And what they've done is created this monstrosity. And it's a monstrosity because so much of this watch won't work within a handful of years. And then you're left with a watch you can't really tell the time on. And it's a very expensive lump of metal to go, oh, this was charming. It's a bit like the Apple Watch first edition in gold. You know, it's one of those things where it will be great in a museum, but like it's not a, you know, it goes also against so much of what Swiss watch industry is meant to be about, right? It's meant to be about craftsmanship, longevity. And yet they create something which has got such a inbuilt sense of disposability about it. Anyway, let's also go into the idea of what would actually be cool. What would be cool is if they'd created a technology that meant that the crystal was embedded in some way with an NFT that only a phone camera can see. So, for example, the camera on my iPhone can see infrared and UV. Human eyes can't see that, right? So, wouldn't it be cool if actually they'd created something where it had this blockchain craziness, but was done in like a classy, interesting, innovative way, rather than it being done in this like brazen. Fine, Moser did this. You know, you wouldn't have got this from, you know, Patek, fine. But I just think there's something, this watch kind of ends the year, and it feels to me like this watch is the kind of the death knell of the hype, you know, and I certainly hope it is. Right, I'm going to take a sip of water and hand back.
So anybody else have an opinion on this watch?
Actually, I was utterly unsurprised when someone else brought this up. I saw it, and personally, I didn't have a stronger reaction to it because I was like those dogs going, eh? I was really trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. If this feels, this feels like an LVMH product. This is the sort of thing they put out. If this had come from one of their brands, we all would have gone. Yeah. Funnily enough, I think it probably wouldn't have angered you as much, Nicholas.
Well, no, if this
is what they do.
Tag or Hublot, I would have been like, oh, it's kind of cool. It's innovative, and I know Moser are like a bit of the bad boy in the industry, you know, because of the watches they've done in the past. But they've moved beyond that. They've outgrown that to actually be, you know, that.
And even as you say, those other watches all had a little twist of joke in them. They all had this little sense of, we, you know, as you say, we are taking the piss. This one comes across as just, actually, we mean this. If it had been a joke, it would have been funny. If you scanned the QR code and it took you to a fake Meta, which made fun of the idea of Meta, that would have been, yes, that would have made more sense. You know, a metaverse that just showed you a webcam of the real world or something like that. You know? That would have sat right next to all their other jokes. So maybe the fact that, oh, you're serious, you think this is a thing, is the part that really confuses us.
It has that sort of clumpiness of, like, you know, QR codes are what, about, I think I read somewhere they're about 30 years old. You know,
they're ancient.
The pandemic is what really, you know, brought them to the fore. But you know, you're looking at this and you're looking at all the tech and you're thinking, it's kind of, what I want to do is go back 30 years and, like, all the things that we kind of, you know, were looking at the first. Go back to this evening. I was watching a film, an old film. Well, I say old film. It was from 2000. What Women Want, with Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah.
And and you're watching this film. You're watching this film, and it is just, it's so of its period. Everyone is making such a big point about the internet and, like, you know, the modern ways of working, and, like, while still in the film, Mel Gibson is like a career executive smoking cigarettes all the time, which is crazy. But it's that sort of thing where we're in that era today where it's like everyone's talking about, like, the World Wide Web, this new futuristic world, and we've only today, really only since the iPhone, have we actually embraced what the internet promised us in the mid 90s. And I feel right now we're in that phase where it's like, you're just like, oh my goodness, in 2050 we're going to be looking back at this, laughing our heads off so much, and yet someone is going to have this watch and it's going to be in a Philips auction, and you're going like, who's explaining it? It's like those APs from the late 90s which come with CD-ROMs with all the information about the watch on a CD-ROM, and you're kind of like, oh, in a way it's charming, but it's not charming if you've spent tens of thousands of pounds or dollars on this. So yeah, sorry for getting so het up and angry.
No, it was a great one.
It's the ultimate hype watch, right? Like, and I think, as Pete says, yeah, if this was a tag, if this had been launched by one of the Arnolds, you would have just gone, fine, okay, great. But I think the fact that it's come from Moser, I'm just a little bit disappointed. And I know that's so condescending of me, like, I'm very disappointed in you, Edouard. But, you know, to me, I am just disappointed because I'm in awe of what they do. And I'm in awe of the fact that they do stuff that is so different. If they'd brought this out, I think, right, even if, as you say, like, if you brought this out as a piss take watch, I would have loved it so much. But it's the fact that it's sincere. It just, no. Yeah.
One thing I will say about this watch, though, is that it's going to become an archive of every car door or wall that you accidentally brush up against. There'll be little paint particles. It'll become a glossary of everything you've accidentally knocked your watch into. Anyway, well, my Ghost of Christmas Past is... we talked about this recently, but I can't get on with this James Bond. I think what offends me about it is that they've coloured these stones to make them that colour. Like, at least with Rolex, with the crazy rainbow one, or I even had the Patek Aquanaut one with the crazy diamonds. Like a gemologist has actually gone out and picked these sapphires that are different colours. You know, somebody's like toiled over, compared several of them, and Omega's like, oh, we'll just dye them that colour because it seems, and I just, it couldn't be any less James Bond. I don't know why it's I don't even know why it's like a commemorative James Bond watch. And the silicon dial, that could easily have been meteorite. I don't know. I'm just this was the thing came straight to mind when I was thinking of my least favorite, my Ghost of Christmas Past. Does anybody else have a visceral reaction to this?
I have a kind of reaction. I do have, I must admit, and I've been having a really interesting set of arguments in the back of my head over the last couple of months since this came out about how do I feel of manufactured gemstones that are made to order versus, you know, as you say, you know, dug up out of the ground and then carefully chipped away and chosen. On one hand, I can kind of see the craft of the gemologist. But then on the other hand, there's a part of me that says the world is a better place where we're not doing that. You know, in a world where we can, in fact, make perfect stones that have got less environmental impact and don't support blood wars. And, you know, it's kind of wrong to be celebrating an activity that we shouldn't be doing anymore. And so there's a little part of me that says, I get the craft of Rolex saying we don't make our gems. We carefully select them and then send poor people from third world countries down mines to dig these up so that we can ship them to you rich Westerners. And there's a part of me that says, in the 21st century, aren't we better than that? So I kind of get the craft bit, but there's a part of me that likes that we, you know, and again, I'm kind of embracing the idea that says the Breitling idea. We will never use another naturally mined stone.
Yeah, okay, that is an interesting take on it. That I had not thought of actually. And then I was thinking, wow, what if they could have made the top stone out of because you could, you know, out of Ian Fleming's ashes or something, because you could make gemstones out of people's ashes, can't you? Which I think is an absolute fantastic.
Yeah,
you know, that's an incredible thing to do as a memorial for somebody that's passed. But yeah, if that was,
I mean, the point you make, Pete, is really interesting because, you know, I think back when I first got into the watch industry 12 years ago, like if you had said to anyone, you know, a gold watch from one of the top tier brands, high complication, would come on anything other than an alligator strap, you would have been laughed out the room. Like that was just, of course it's coming on an alligator strap. What do you mean? And, you know, you fast forward to today and it's like, yeah, alligator straps are being phased out left, right, and center. I mean, Rolex don't sell alligator straps, right? And it's, yeah, you know, with the same thing is going to be diamonds. I mean, you know, I wear diamonds in my wedding ring, but I'm just, as you were talking, I was looking at them thinking, wow, actually, yeah, you know, you go back to like the 40s and 50s. What was the one thing that supposedly every woman craved other than a diamond was a mink coat? You know, the rarity of all these hundreds of animals bred and then killed and, you know, and all this. And you start thinking all these things that were naturally rare, like a diamond was rare, a mink coat was rare, alligator straps were rare because they were really expensive. But something happened where suddenly it became more available. You know, I remember as a kid growing up, smoked salmon was like a massive luxury that you'd have on Christmas Day. And I still remember in my early 20s suddenly realizing you'd go in the UK, we've got a sandwich shop called Pret a Manger, and you'd go in and they would have a smoked salmon sandwich always available, and it'd be £1.99. Nowadays it's like $2.99. So, you know, we're talking about $3-4 for a smoked salmon sandwich. And I still sometimes I'm like, the smoked salmon's a luxury. It should be a luxury. And then you realize, of course, there's a massive difference between properly created smoked salmon and the people involved in it and how it's farmed and all the things that go into it, compared to not necessarily saying, you know, Pret using bad salmon, but, you know, it's the different. It's the same thing with like gemstones and precious metals. And yeah, it's weird to see how everything over the last decades went from being a luxury to being available to all. And you wonder if the rarity will force it going, right, actually, if you can only get gemstones from like, you know, not sustainable sources, but like from sources which are tracked, are certified. I mean, I know talking to case makers and about precious metals, and it's fascinating because you literally will say like, oh, I'd like to make my case in gold. Okay, great. What kind of gold? You know, go through the colors. And then they go, do you want gold or do you want like ethical gold, i.e. where we can trace it all the way to the mine and we work with certain mines, blah, blah, blah. And you go, oh, we'll go with the ethical one. Okay, great. Well, that's going to be literally double-digit percentage more expensive for the case. Do you want it? Yes or no? And it's suddenly that thing where you go, wow, like there is a cost for that. And but there was a comment that someone made about this watch. I saw on the live comments, and I think that's the main thing. I personally think it's horrible. I just think the colors, the mismatch, it's oh no.
Yeah. No, I had to name this one. Well, should we go on to Ghost of Christmas Present? So watches that the one that we would have liked to have owned this year. Maybe we did buy them, but one that really stood out this year. Todd, should we start with you again?
Yeah, we guess we can. So the one that, well, I didn't put this one on here exactly because it's just not obtainable, but it's the Kodo Constant Force Tourbillon from Grand Seiko. That was just wow. I mean, that was just a marvelous piece of art and engineering. So what I sent though were this is the Grand Seiko spring drive. It's the manual wind spring drive SBGY 009. And you know, if I was going to go out and buy a three-hander, this is something that just really put a check in the box for me. Were the Grand Seiko releases like these? These follow the grammar of design really well. In fact, I should have brought it down. I have a early 1970s Grand Seiko, and it's and the way the case shape works and all of that. It's you can definitely see where its lineage comes from, and that's what I've always liked about Grand Seiko is they're not afraid to, and in fact, they may even over advertise that. But yeah, they have a black dial, and the blue dial is just to me really a stunning watch. And so this is what came to my mind in terms of, you know, what was released this year and just how amazing it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Patrick's agreeing with you there. Great choice.
Yeah, did he get one similar? I forgot.
Did he buy this one or a very similar one? Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I won't pass my judgment on Grand Seiko because it might make an appearance later on in this. But anybody else have a view on Grand Seiko or this one in particular, maybe as Todd's choice?
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful watch. Grand Seiko, a watch. I want a Grand Seiko. I'm just waiting for the one. And that's not to say that you know, everything that they've made is trash and doesn't attract me. This is a gorgeous watch. It's just, I think that the downside of Grand Seiko is, you know, that they release so many watches that one day there's going to be the perfect watch, the one that just says, you know, no compromise. This is the one I want. I'm still just waiting for that one.
Yeah,
but that one is gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. I'm that way a little bit with JLC. I really, really, really want a JLC, but at some point. But I just can't figure out which one I like well enough to actually spend that kind of money on in the future, let's say.
Hold that thought.
Excellent.
Go on then, Pete. What's your Ghost of Christmas Present?
Okay, is this one.
Oh, yeah, the Polaris.
JLC Polaris with green.
Yeah, I have to see that in real life. Yeah.
Yeah. From the moment that JLC released this watch, the Polaris, I've been interested in it. And a little bit like I said with Grand Seiko, you know, I've wanted to want a JLC. I've wanted to want a Polaris, but the plain blue and the black, the if you like, the run-of-the-mill dials just didn't have something.
The blue one didn't do it for me either. I had it on wrist, and I'm like,
Yeah,
really,
exactly. And then they did have that limited. I think it was a limited edition, or it might have been a short run where they did the degradé blue dial, very similar to the green but in blue. And that one really caught my attention. But again, I found myself thinking, it's lovely, it's fantastic, it's very close to everything I want. Except I've got a bunch of blue dial watches. Does it really take the collection anywhere? And then the green one came out. And I instantly made an appointment at my local JLC boutique to say, if you ever get one in, can I come in and look at it? They rang me up a couple of weeks later. I went and had a look at it and then gave them a deposit.
Wow.
It was just, I was not going to let this go. I don't know how long it's going to be available. I was not going to take the risk.
Yeah, no, it's a great choice. Great choice. Nicholas, what's your ghost of Christmas present?
Well, it's a similar sort of story to Pete, a different watch, but mine is the Christopher Ward C1 Bel Canto. It's, I mean, people who've seen me on here a few times will know that I'm in love with this watch. It's my first Christopher Ward. It's a watch this to me is a real game changer watch. And it's also, I mentioned earlier, working in the industry, like I professionally consume so many new watches. I see them, I read about them, I hear about them 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And in the last few years, there's been very little that's really gone, right, if I had the money, I would buy that. And that's just because I get a bit jaded, which sounds awful. But like when you see, you get hypercritical of everything. And I still remember when I saw the first like prototype photos of this, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. That looks nice. But I was like, it's very showy. There's a lot going on. And then when I got to try on the prototype, I was just, I mean, I think I've said here, I just said straight away, I want to buy one. And I think I get people messaging me on my personal Instagram saying like, hey, I'm on the wait list. I'm thinking about getting one. I'm not sure. And yeah, I mean, everyone's different, but I think this is a watch that the photos are good. Wearing it is spectacular. And it's spectacular because it does this rare thing. It feels really special. And I don't mean special just to me. I mean, it feels like a special watch. And when I wear it out and about, it's the number one watch. People who clearly aren't watch people will go like, oh, I like your watch. That's nice. And they don't, you say, oh, it's a chiming watch. Blank eyes, no idea what any of this means. It's from Christopher Ward, blank eyes, like they're just like, oh, it looks cool. It looks nice. It's like, it's interesting. And yeah, it's also rare for me to actually buy any watches for myself. My personal watch collection is under 6 watches. And yeah, this is something that brings me a ridiculous amount of joy. Like it, when I put it on, I absolutely love it. And I think it's also, I think the thing that is so good about it, and, I don't know if Mike will watch this. Hopefully he won't, or he'll blush. But, the thing is, Christopher Ward do things properly. Like, when they merged years ago with their manufacturing partner in Switzerland, like, they're making stuff, they're engineering stuff. They are a big company. It's very easy to go like, oh yeah, they play in this like, $1,000, $1,500 sort of price point, and lots of brands, even a lot of British brands, play in that same price point. But the difference is Christopher Ward are like, you go to their HQ, you walk out, that they're a proper watch company. They, hand on heart, can compete with a lot of the Swiss guys, for size, in terms of quantity of watches, quality of watches. And I think this watch has quite rightly, not that it should have been the case, but it's quite rightly got a lot of people who in the past might have dismissed Christopher Ward to suddenly go, oh, this is really impressive. Like, I actually need to reevaluate my view and my opinion on the brand, and I need to take a second look. And I don't know what it is, but I would hazard a guess quite a lot of the owners of Bel Cantos are probably like myself. This is their first Christopher Ward. It's a piece that and it makes me look. I've known about Christopher Ward since 2004, right? I've been friends with the owner for the last several years, and yet even for me, this is the first one, and it now makes me look at a lot of the the other pieces in the collection, going, yeah, right. Now, when my friends say, "Hey, I'm wanting to buy a watch under £1,000, what would you recommend?" I straight away I'm saying, look at Christopher Ward. You're not going to regret it. You're going to get a solid, good watch. So yeah. And I say the annoying thing, but because I always make a point of, Fears does no discounts, we do no sales. Whenever I buy a watch from a friend's company, I never ask for a discount. And I love it even more for that. For me, it's like, actually, I've worked hard to buy this. It doesn't just happen. So yeah, that's my watch of the year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I've had hands on that as well, and you're right. There is just something cool about it. Well, then my watch of Christmas present is actually. I would have picked the Belcanto, but I had a feeling that you were going to pick it. So I picked a Christopher Ward, actually. I reviewed this Trident 300
Ooh.
Pro. On the face of it, it seems like a straightforward dive tool watch. This is a lineage. I've owned the previous version, the Pro 600. This is the Pro 300. But there's something about this watch, and I said it. I interviewed Mike, and then I did a full review of this green dial one. There's something about this watch that they've got like just spot on for a dive watch for me. There's the case, the light catcher case, which I've seen before, but on this it seems more wrist hugging. The way that the dial is, the Christopher Ward do this thing, which is like, they do simplicity of design really well, where everything makes sense. So the minute hand perfectly covers the indices. They're the same size, they're similar length. The way that the logo is, the way that the hands are brushed and polished, the way that the date lines up. There's just something that there's like, even though it looks like a simple design, there's like an incredible amount of design effort that's gone into it to make it look as clean as it does. And the bezel action, which I know Mike's got this kind of gentleman's wager with himself that he can make a Rolex style bezel. This isn't like a Rolex style bezel, but it's as close as that I think they've got so far with it. It's just an absolute, looks like a standard dive watch, but in person, it's one of the best dive watches in this price range that I've ever reviewed. In this $1,000 price range, I think it's a little bit over $1,000 on the bracelet, $1,050. I think this is one of the best watches that I've ever reviewed from Christopher Ward. And I know this is getting on my soapbox a bit, but there was just something about it when I saw it. I'm like, wow, there's a lot. You can see the lineage, the sort of the evolution of this Trident 300 Pro, which is their kind of bread and butter model, I would say. But yeah, that's my ghost.
Is this the one that they did with a lot of the feedback from the forum?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. And I think what was so interesting about that was it's the subtle little changes, like, the design. It's how Rolex have done things so well. It's about not having to make it revolutionary, but like just tweak it here and there. This is a great choice. This is a lovely watch.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, should we get on to a fun one now? This is Ghost of Christmas Future, so a watch that we would like to see released. Todd, what would you love to see released next year?
Well, I think Nicholas covered this one pretty well. I put in the Belcanto.
Okay.
Because they're supposedly Christopher Ward is going to issue new ones out sometime in the future. They were not specific on that. This will not be the colorways, I believe, that have been the green and the blue will not be repeated.
Yeah,
but they will release other versions of this, and I am on their mailing list to, when they're going to announce one, a new distribution of whatever it turns out to be. I will plan on jumping on that when it's available.
Okay,
so that's what I'm hoping is that they'll do that and with sufficient numbers that the interested people can actually get one.
Yeah, no, awesome. That's a great pick, Pete. What watch are you hoping that comes out next year?
I'm this is a little bit of, there's rumors circulating that this watch is coming. So I'm kind of hoping that this is coming out. I want a world timer. Because I collect travel watches. So I want a world timer. I want a quartz one. I wouldn't mind something that's kind of anti-digi that fits in there. Now, I just described the Breitling Aerospace, which I quite like. Okay. But there's a rumor that next year there's an all-new one with a completely in-house Breitling movement coming. And I'm hoping that this year they've had the Endurance Pro line, which is in that bright light, which I don't really like. It just doesn't feel right. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just not something I want. But this year they released a limited edition titanium cased version of the Endurance Pro. And I'm hoping against hope that what we get next year is a titanium Endurance Pro styled, a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more exciting paste with an all-new in-house anti-digi world timer function.
Yeah, I would be all in on that. I love Breitling anti-digi. I really do. Yeah. I've had a couple of iterations of the B1. Really like them, and Breitling does feel special when you wear it. There is just something cool. I had no idea about this this titanium version.
I actually did a video on this. This is my favorite kind of limited edition. No press release, no marketing at all. It's designed for people that do Ironman, and so it's actually advertised through the Ironman site. So if you do Ironman triathlons, you will know about this watch because it's intended for you, but they didn't advertise it really outside of that. And as I said, that's kind of my perfect idea of how LEs, in a perfect world, that's how every limited edition would work. Watch companies wouldn't advertise them. The people that they're commemorating would advertise them.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point. It is a good point. Yeah, Nicholas, what's your Ghost of Christmas Future? What watch do you hope gets released next year?
So the watch I would absolutely love is if Cartier brought their Pebble in as a steel quartz watch. So something in that like $3,000 sort of tank must pricing, and not limited edition. It can have a white dial, blue hands, steel case, but just that watch, because I think that is the Pebble is one of the most beautiful watches I've seen. The relaunch is really good, and I've handled one of the originals. I've not seen one of the new ones, but they made 100 of them. They were $40,000 each, which for a two-hand Piaget powered, I think it's a Piaget powered watch, just seems crazy money, but they of course sold out straight away. It's also known as I think it's something to do with baseball. Do I mean baseball? Yeah, it's like the pitch.
Like a diamond.
Anything about sport. But yeah, so you've got the four corners. And I just think this is a cool watch. But actually, this is actually what I really want to see. What I really, really want to see next year is I want to see brands bringing out more unusual things. Like, okay, let's say we're moving away from the hype. So let's stop doing like, oh, we're going to make 100 of this, drop it, and it will sell out immediately. Okay, what if you were to make 100 of something, make 100 of something, but make 100 of something like unusual, weird, different, and you can afford for it to sell out slowly over the course of maybe a year, because guess what? It's not everyone's cup of tea, but it will be, a few people will just absolutely love it. So we mentioned earlier the PO1 from Tudor, that sort of stuff. Like everything in the last couple of years has felt it's not felt safe because everyone is scared because of, you know, economic climate or things. It's all felt very similar because everyone's just gone, oh, well, we can just sell a lot of this. So more divers, more braceleted, integrated blue dialed watches. Oh, green's a color. Now everything's in green, even though I will say, Pete, that green is a perfect green. Whereas, yeah, Todd, you're that G-Shock, I'm with you. That is the worst green I've ever seen. But, you know, I want to see more things like that Cartier Pebble, like, but at a price point that isn't like 40 grand, only sold to VIPs. Just more weird, beautiful, unusual stuff, which they know. Because the thing is, a lot of watch brands could afford to do that. They can afford to bring something out in a limited run, which won't be a huge commercial hit straight off, but actually people will love it. And I think for a lot of collectors, I see it in the comments, I see it in comments on every new watch launch. So much of it is just, it's derivative, and it's like, come on, let's see some cool stuff. Like, I think it was I totally agree with you, and I do love the Pebble case, and I think Cartier is strong enough that it could do with the Pebble what it does with the tank, and have this like long stretched out line. I wonder, and you're inside the industry, Nicholas, so I'd be curious on your insight on this. I almost get the feeling that it became a bit of a pissing competition between brands. How fast can we sell out? How much, you know, desire can we drive? And this is something I know you hate, Sam, when people have a watch which is obviously going to be a mass hit. This is clearly something that they could sell 100,000 of if they wanted to, but for purely arbitrary reasons, they've said, we'll make 100, we'll make 1,000. I spoke about limited editions, you know, one perfect example being, you know, where it celebrates a collab where you sort of come in from outside watches. I think the other one is where, as you said, Nicholas, someone takes a chance. You know, we're only going to make 1,000 of these because I don't know if we're going to sell 500. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's really irritating when you look at something and you go, man, that's just, everyone knows that's going to be a smash hit.
Yeah, like a Bamford G-Shock or whatever. No, I totally agree. Well, before I do mine, let's go for a couple of comments. So we've got Keith. I would love to see more variants of the Longines 37mm Spirit, maybe green dial or a black gint. Yeah, or a titanium version is added on. Mark saying an Omega Seamaster with a GMT or a Globe Master with a GMT. And then James Duffy saying, I'd love to see the Black Bay 58 with a 369 dial in steel. I think they need to put a date on it, but that's just my controversial. But yeah, you're right. Mark said earlier that writing this, to your point, Nicholas, writing a year's worth of Instagram posts on new watches has taught me that this year's releases were pretty dull. So, and then Brassic Time saying part of the hesitation we feel about pulling the purchase trigger is the sheer volume of launches of great watches. We've never had it so good, which I think I agree with that. Well, my Ghost of Christmas Future, I accidentally flashed it up before, but a Turtle or a Willard Grand Seiko, a spring drive version of one of these watches. I think it has to be done. Like, I don't. The Prospex LX line seems like an experiment that they've been doing. That the watches seem quite big. They've got some of the Seiko design language. I don't know why they don't just take a design like this, which everybody loves, and then make a spring drive variant of it, and not make it crazy price. Make it like $4,000 or $5,000.
But would you buy this with a spring drive and not just spend a little bit more for the Grand Seiko variant? Although you wouldn't have one in a Willard case, but that's what I'm.
Yeah, wondering. Well, if they refined the case, if they did the Grand Seiko treatment on the case and not the Grand Seiko treatment on the bracelet, they just made a good bracelet for it. Then I think this, and they maybe had the power indicator in a clever way, or had it on the back like some of the new Seiko one, or even
like
made it like a hand wind, a hand wind spring drive, because the cases on these are so good. They've got that kind of vintage nod, and it would be like an evolution of the design. I think it would seem like, because I very much, I've been reluctant to buy mid-range mechanical Seiko watches because I just don't think the movement technology's moved on. The prices have gone up, but the movement technology, I personally feel, hasn't moved on. I've had a couple that have gone wrong. Talking about new Seiko, not vintage ones.
Yeah,
so I think if they make
5s and 6Rs.
Yeah.
They actually Seiko do make an SLA level Willard cased watch that comes with an 8L movement. So you're not 1,000. You're not in the realms of stupidity there, Sam. As I said, they've got the case that you could make that slight sideways leap. I've actually got one kind of bubbling away as potentially a watch I buy next year. I think that would be great. It's going to be interesting to see what Seiko does with their movements. Will they bite the bullet at some point, push in the same sort of push the 4R, 6R movements further down, bring the 8L movement into the SPD line, and then perhaps suck spring drive into that SLA area? Seiko love their spring drive. They treat it like the holy grail. It is the crown jewels. So they are never going to give you the $1,500 Seiko with a spring drive that I know you want, Sam. It's just not going to happen. But I can see one in that SLA level. So they come out new. I'll use Australian dollar prices. Forgive me. They come out new for $5,500 on Chrono 24. You can pick them up for like $3,500. That's kind of. I'd love to see a spring drive in there. Yeah.
No, I would.
Okay. I could see one in a Marine Master too. Did they ever put spring drive in a Marine
There is
Master?
one. I think there is a Marine Master. I think there is a tuner cased one with a spring drive.
That would be
got rose gold.
That's an
absolutely. There was a fairly gauche set of colors, lots of rose gold on black and steel. It didn't really work well, but they have done it.
Okay. Yeah, because I think of this Prospex LX line that does have, it does have spring drive components in it, but I don't think it has its own thing, and they always. I can imagine that they're quite big. I've only seen one in a display case. I can imagine that they're quite chunky. Whereas I think the turtle case, and then I forget the other one they released, which is like the thin turtle. I forget the name. They released it this year, but a case like that with a spring drive in it, where it's very wearable, and it's not so much of it, because these are obviously wearable, but they're like a statement, like I'm wearing a really expensive Seiko. But if they use that great spring drive technology in a normal cased sports watch, because even the sports versions of the
Grand Seikos tend to be large.
Yeah, and they have like funny hands. The divers to me, type hands. It looks like a relief of a cathedral for some reason. But so that's my one.
Their master compressors too. It's like phenomenal watches, I'm sure, but boy, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go, guys. Yeah, sorry, Pete, go on.
I was just going to say, if you're looking for the actual SLA I was talking about, I sent you through on the offline the reference, the SLA 066J1.
Okay.
Oh yeah, let's flash that up then. Okay, so it's this one, Pete. Is it?
Yeah.
In fact, that's the Darth Vader one, or whatever they call it, where it's all black.
Yeah, so that's the particular one I've got on my notepad that I'm tracking.
Okay, so that's a really good price, isn't it, for an 8L35?
Yeah, that's good. That's not crazy.
Wow, there you go. Because this looks like the Helly Hansen limited edition, which I also quite like the look of.
Yeah. I always liked the Helly Hansen, the idea that I was wearing a watch that probably cost less than the coat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was awesome. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you to the panel for joining me. Check out Pete's channel. Obviously, Nicholas at Fears Watches. Check out Fears Watches, and then Seiko Todd, who's yet to bless us with in Instagram.
One day I will put all these things on Instagram. Yes, I need to.
It's your legacy. Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for being so active in the comments. Really appreciate you watching. We hope that you all have a nice Christmas or holiday season, and we'll see. Probably won't do one next week because I think next week is Christmas, isn't it, or the Boxing Day? But yes, we'll be back probably in the new year, or we'll work something out. Thanks, everyone. Sorry. Whoa! Before I stop. We're doing I forgot to say, we're doing a longer show. We're doing a Tea and Tickers. I'm doing a collaboration with Tea and Tickers on December the 27th. We're doing a long show. We're going to do like a 9-hour show, and I'll be doing a middle section. I'll release a little clip about what we're doing, but that's the December the 27th. It'll be spanning UK time, and then it'll be spanning 2 American time zones as well. So check it out, December the 27th, over on Tea and Tickers, and then on my channel as well. I forgot to mention that at the start. Sorry, John. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Christmas.